Hey guys, welcome back to Mom Talk TV. I'm Melissa, and this week's discussion, I guess, is a little controversial, can be, because it's about parenting styles and how we discipline our children. So Ellie is 7.5 months now, and obviously we're not using any sort of discipline. We are using the word no and trying to teach her what that means, but so far she's not getting it. She's a little too young for that. But I do have a discipline style that I have used with my godson, who is 5, and he has, well, he's been in my life for 5 years, so I've had lots of time to practice. The discipline style that I would say I have would be the talk it out, come to a solution type of thing, but I also can be pretty strict. I have a no BS policy, if you will, like no games, no trying to talk your way out of it if you did something wrong. I don't know, I can be a little bit lenient, but I can be pretty like hammer down. When I describe it, you'll see what I mean. I have had to use discipline in public twice. The first time is when my godson was 3, and the second time was when he was 5. Now, they both are totally different outcomes than what we had to do. But the first one was when he was 3 and we were in a grocery store and he saw something that he could not have, which was chocolate icing. There was no reason for me to buy it, and I'm not going to buy chocolate icing for him to eat. So he started to cry and he was very unhappy that I said no, that he couldn't have that. And my immediate approach is when something is wrong that I see him like he's having a hard time with, I get down on his level and I speak with him and I ask him what's wrong, and we try to come to a solution, like negotiate, if you will. And if we can't come to a negotiation, and at that point there was no negotiating, I wasn't buying chocolate icing. So there was no negotiating, and he was just livid with me that he couldn't have this chocolate icing. And so once there is no negotiating, we can't find a happy medium, then I have the warning, which is, okay, you cannot act this way in public. We don't act this way. So please stop. And then the second phase is action. I am not one to keep giving out warnings over and over and over again, because I find they're just empty threats, I guess would be the word. And that annoys me so much when I see that parent saying, okay, if you do that one more time, we are going home. If you do that one more time, you're going home. I am not that type of person. I guess that's what I mean by I have like no games. Like, if you don't listen to me after the warning, that's it. We're getting out of here. So thank God I had no perishable food items at that point. He didn't listen to the warning. I gave him 5 minutes to cool off, and I talked to him during that time. He was still like, he was getting more angry, and talking to him was just making it worse. So I left everything in my cart and we vacated and went home, and he went to his bedroom and he lost all of his toys in his room. Now keep in mind, he doesn't live with me, so he had like 2 toys in his bedroom. He lost all of his toys in his room, and he had a 3-minute timeout, 1 minute for every year old he is. And I think, in my opinion, when a child sees that you aren't into playing games with them, and that you mean business and you will do something, the less times that you will have to carry out that third action, I call it. Like, you won't have to leave a store that many times. You won't have to come home and give them timeouts and take away their things. But I am a very firm believer that you need to follow through. You can't give empty threats, because they eventually just test you beyond your limits. The one thing that I have absolutely no exceptions on, if like I don't even bother giving the warning, I try to negotiate. And if you can't listen to me, if we can't find a happy medium or whatever, we're out of there, is restaurants. And nothing makes me more mad, and this might be controversial, and I apologize, but just keep in mind that these are my opinions and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but this is something that I feel totally strongly about. I did not come to a restaurant to listen to your child scream your head off or scream their head off while you sit back and do absolutely nothing. There is nothing that makes me more infuriated when I go to a restaurant and I pay good money to eat and I sit in a vicinity where a child is screaming their head off and their parents are doing absolutely nothing to even remotely calm their child down. I get children are not perfect. They can have outbursts at the most inopportune times and it can be a little embarrassing, but please, for the love of God, try to do something. And if you can't do something, then leave. Like, you're not wasting your money. You can get your meal to go. And I know that may sound like a huge inconvenience, but I made a vow that when I had kids, after watching children literally beat each other up, do vile and disgusting things like spit spitballs at their parents, after seeing that stuff, I made a vow that if my child ever got to the point where he or she was disrupting other people around me in the restaurant, we would get the meal to go and get out of there and go home and do timeout. And I realize that might not be an option for everybody. Go to the vehicle, go to the restroom, just vacate the dining room, please. That's just how I feel about it. Now, the second time when we had to use discipline in public, my godson was 5 and we were out at the bouncy castles. This was just very recently, actually it was last Saturday. And he couldn't understand that he couldn't use this certain bouncy inflatable thing because the older kids were on it. It was for older children, and he tried one time and he had a really hard time using it. Anyway, it was just begging for him to have a broken arm because kids weren't taking their turns and they were stepping all over each other. It was basically for older children because he was little and he had a really hard time getting up on something. And there was like 20 other bouncy castles or whatever you want to call them that he could have used. So when I told him, no, you know, that one's not a good idea because you could get hurt, and I try to explain why he can't have this or do a certain thing because he could get hurt, not every little 5-year-old boy understands why they can't do these things. And he threw a hissy fit and had a complete meltdown, and I immediately got down on his level and tried the negotiating skills, and that didn't work, so we went right into the warning. I told him, like, okay, if this is the way you want to act, then we're just gonna go home. And so we went over and got coat, boots, and sweater and all that stuff, and he realized she means business. And I warned him that if this is the way things are gonna go, then we're leaving. And I warned him about that before we went in there. And thankfully, we didn't have to leave. He still got to play in the bouncy castles, and it was great. How that would be different from like public versus home, there is no difference for me. You do something, I try to explain to you why we can't do this and like make another option for them to choose from, like say, okay, you can't have this, but we can do this, or we don't act this way in public, try you know, another action. And if that doesn't work, then I follow through with a warning, and then I do action, which is immediately time in the bedroom, toys taken out. I plan to have most of Ellie's toys in the living room unless we move to a home that has like a playroom. So yeah, I am a firm believer on following through with what you're gonna say, or what you're gonna do rather, and then you won't have so many times where you have to like leave somewhere or send them to their room. But I am definitely not an empty threats person. My godson knows I mean business, and so will my kids. Anyways, I would like to hear how your discipline styles are and what you do in public versus being at home. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye bye.